What order would you recommend buying the D&D 5th edition source books in order of helpfulness and importance? Okay, so I'm gonna answer that question from the perspective of a dungeon master, is what I'm gonna do. If you're looking for 100% free D&D 5th edition adventures you can use in your groups, check out my website, thedmlair.com. At thedmlair.com, you can find not only free 5e adventures, but also lots of other free Dungeon Master resources, new monsters, magic items, traps, NPCs, and much more. And if you sign up to my newsletter, you'll get free DM resources delivered to your inbox every single week. My newsletter subscribers also get discount codes to the DM Lair store where they can get back issues of Lair magazine and other premium D&D resources I publish. So if you were a dungeon master and you're going to get the 5th edition source books, which ones would be the most helpful for you? Which ones should you get? I would definitely say Player's Handbook. You start with the Player's Handbook because the Dungeon Master needs that as well. You're gonna need it. That has tons of the rules in there that you need to know, so definitely get that one. And then you're gonna want the Monster Manual. You need the Monster Manual. It has monsters in it. You need monsters. And then I would say the third one you'd want to get is the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is interestingly ironic that as the Dungeon Master, the third thing you should get is the Dungeon Master Guide. While it does include information in there and some rules and stuff, it is not the most important book in my opinion. I definitely, if I only could have two of the books, I would choose the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual. If I could only have one of the books, you have to have the Player Handbook. So you definitely, I would go for that order. After that, once you have those three core books, you really don't have to have anything else. If you're on a budget, those three will get the job done. You don't need the other ones. But if you wanted to get the other ones, in my personal opinion, in the order of most usefulness, I would definitely go for the monster manuals. So you have Volo's Guide to Monsters and then Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. As a dungeon master who creates dungeons and adventures for my players, I always need more monsters, more interesting monsters to put into my adventures. I'm always going to need those. So I definitely would get the other monster manuals. Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Always going to be super useful for me. At that point, I'm probably going to look, if I'm running an adventure module, I'm going to get whatever adventure module I feel like I want to run, whether it's Ghosts of Salt Marsh or Storm King's Thunder or Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I would get the module that I need. I view Xanathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Wait, Xanathar's Guide to what? What is it called? It get me confused around here. Yeah, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Oh, they literally say everything. Okay, they are the same. I thought I was getting them confused. Xanathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I don't use those hardly at all as a dungeon master. There's not a whole lot of stuff in those that I find super useful as a dungeon master. Xanathar's Guide to Everything has the revised downtime rules, which I think are very useful, but those are pretty much the same as Unearthed Arcana, which you can get for free. Like years ago, they did revised downtime in Unearthed Arcana, and it's almost the exact same as what they published in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I know playtesting and beta and alpha and stuff, but they didn't change a whole lot, so it's almost the same for free. I use those from Xanathar's. I don't use much of anything else from Xanathar's Guide to Everything as a dungeon master. So I would view that as very, very optional for a dungeon master. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is mostly stuff for players. There's not a whole lot in there for the dungeon master. I would say the one thing in there that I would use as a dungeon master are the sidekick rules. I think the sidekick rules are pretty cool. So I would probably use those. But most of the other stuff in there is for players. It's player stuff. So as a dungeon master, I just don't care about player stuff a whole lot. I want to review it and make sure it's not overpowered or something. But it's not super necessary for my job for what I'm doing in the game. You know what I mean? So I would let my players buy those because they're the ones that are going to use those the most. And what else am I missing? Is there anything else that I'm missing that I haven't discussed? Yes, I think some of the magic item, the loot table stuff in Xanathar's is useful. I don't really use it a whole lot myself, but I've taken a peek at it. Are there any other modules that I forgot to mention? Anything else, or any other source books that Dungeon Masters should consider? Anything I overlooked? Danny says the only module you absolutely need to be a DM is this dope one called Into the Fae. This is 100% true and totally not a biased opinion. Literally impossible to play D&D without owning Into the Fae. Yep. Well, where's the link? Where's the shameless link to that? There we go. Thank you, Penguin Butt. Skag. Okay, Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Ed is fishing for a rant. I have ranted many times on Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide and how it is very, very bad. So you do not want to get that. I would get the 2nd edition campaign setting for Forgotten Realms if you wanted a campaign setting for Forgotten Realms. Don't get Skag. Eberron. Yes, the Eberron campaign setting is amazing. Amazing, amazing. I have not found anything in it that I didn't like, that I thought sucked or whatever. And usually I can find things that I can pick at a little bit, you know, but Eberron was so tight. It was so good. I'm planning on doing a flip through at some point about the Eberron campaign setting because I always talk about how awesome it is. And I've never actually gone through it and talked about some of these things. So I think I'm going to do that at some point on one of my live streams and then probably put it over on YouTube and stuff. But Eberron is very, very good. It's such a great campaign setting. Not just thematically, not just like the theme, the feel and stuff of Eberron, but how they designed it. How they designed it with the Dungeon Master in mind to help the Dungeon Master actually run a game in Eberron. Like the design team, the people that made the Eberron book are like, wow, very good. I was so impressed by Eberron. Yeah. Ed says, love the Eberron book, don't like the setting. Yeah, you might not like the setting, but the design of the book and how they made the book was so well made. I think every campaign setting should be designed and laid out and organized in a way similar to Eberron. It's just so well done. It should be like the gold standard for how to do campaign settings. Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa. Purple highlighting. That must be an important question. I wonder who just added purple highlighting to Danny's question. Do we have any confessions? Any confessions, moderators? Would any of my moderators like to confess to that? I plead the 5th. Somebody wants her question answered. Danny's like, LOL, thank you, Sonny. So it was Penguin Butt. I have found you. I have found you. All right, so I know some of the official modules aren't the best balance or most fun to play, but I'm purely a homebrew DM, story-wise, so I don't know which ones are actually that bad. Do you have any suggestions for modules that are actually worth the money and will be fun or functional to run, both to keep my sanity and save me from having to write every adventure I run from scratch? Wow. Look at that question. Luke, could you review all of the modules that have been created to see which ones I should actually try running or not? Well, let's look at the list of 5th edition modules. 5e adventure modules. I wonder if there's like a wiki page that lists them out. Is there a wiki page? List of Dungeons and Dragons adventures. We're probably not going to get it. Oh, is there a 5th edition? 5th edition. Oh, I think I found it. Okay, I think I actually found it. I did say wiki. That's how I pronounce it. I do not say wiki. I say wiki. I say wiki. Don't judge me. I will put a comma splice somewhere. Judging me for my pronunciation. People are mean. You're going to make me cry. All right, let's take a look at these. I'll try to give you my thoughts on some of these. I haven't read them all. I certainly have not played them all, but I'll give you some quick thoughts on some of these things and we'll see where we go from there. Whoa. Some pop-ups. Okay. Lost Mines of Phandelver. I've not played it. I've not run it. It's in the starter set. I've heard good things about it. Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. I have heard from people who have played this that there are parts of it that's a hot sloppy mess and very challenging and difficult and stuff. So I don't know that I would recommend that, but only based on what I've heard from other people. Princes of the Apocalypse. I ran about a third of this module for my group and read other parts of it. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. There was a problem with the dungeon design. Basically, one level of a dungeon was like level 4. The next level down was for level 8, and the next level down was for level 12. So if you have a typical adventuring party that just wants to go down into the dungeon from level to level, they're going to get their butts kicked. So there was some serious game design issues with that, but a dungeon master could fix it if they know to do that and know how to do it. So it could be done. Out of the Abyss, never run it before. Never have done that before, so I can't comment on that. Curse of Strahd. Curse of Strahd is a very good module. I am enjoying it. I like it. I will say that it is a very open world module. People will call it sandboxy or something. It is not an adventure module I would recommend for a new dungeon master at all. This is an adventure module for experienced dungeon masters who can, they got some experience under their belt. So it's fun though. It's a very good module. I just wouldn't recommend it for a first-time dungeon master for sure. They will probably be frustrated by it. Yeah. Storm King's Thunder. Conceptually, I like the idea. I like the storyline behind it. It's a bunch of giants, which you're going to need to homebrew because giants are one of the most boring, uninteresting monsters in the entire monster manual. I haven't read hardly any of it. There is an entire chapter which is really just like a campaign setting for the North. It gives you like a list of cities and then like adventure hooks in them, but the dungeon master has to write their own adventures as opposed to actually giving you the adventures. So that might appeal to somebody. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think that would be fairly interesting for me, but for other dungeon masters, perhaps not so much. I do feel like the way they set this up because of the different tracks you can take, there are big parts of this adventure module that don't end up getting run at the game table if you take different choices. So when I was thinking of running this for my group, I was just gonna like make it so that you would run all of the different parts of it, but I would just level up the different parts. That way you would go to all of the giant areas and have to fight everything because I bought the module and we're gonna play a giant module. We might as well just do everything. You know what I mean? But can't really comment on that too much. Tales from the Yawning Portal is hit and miss. I would say probably about half of the adventures in Tales from the Yawning Portal are really good. A couple of them are amazing. The Forgotten Forge, I think is the name of one of them, is amazing. I loved it. There was so much good stuff in it. Others are absolutely abysmally horrible. Against the Giants is a train wreck. I did not like that at all. And it's not really an adventure module. It's more like an anthology. It contains a variety of different adventures. They do not follow the same storyline. So Tales from the Yawning Portal, you would buy this if you want to drag and drop certain adventures into your homebrew. Like let's pretend, Danny, that you were running, your group was level 4 and you didn't want to make a homebrew for some reason. You just wanted to use a pre-made one, just to save yourself some prep time. Then you might get Tales from the Yawning Portal and take the Forgotten Forge and take an area of that and drop it into your game. But you wouldn't run this from cover to cover. That's not the way Tales from the Yawning Portal was designed. It's really more designed as an anthology. Which is the same is true for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and the same is true for Candlekeep Mysteries. They're not end-to-end modules that you would run. You can drag and drop certain adventures out of them into your game, which is very useful in my opinion. I actually prefer that method of an adventure module as opposed to having it be something you would run from like level 1 or 3 or 5 all the way to level 12. For me personally as a dungeon master, that's more useful. I would probably use that more than an adventure module that you're kind of stuck in, so to speak, for like 3 years or something. So anyway, I actually kind of like that setup. I think that's very useful. for me as a dungeon master, I would use that a whole lot more. Tomb of Annihilation. Have not played it, have not really read it a whole lot. I have heard that it's pretty deadly. That's really all I know about it. Now we're getting into some that I actually know a little bit about. Dragon Heist, I played through almost the entire thing. I thought it was really well designed. I thought it was really cool. I liked it. I thought it was awesome. It's a level 1 to 5 adventure module. I can recommend that one for sure. Probably not a waste of your time or money. Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Really, really good. I feel like Dungeon of the Mad Mage is underrated. It is totally underrated. Folks will be like, oh, it's just a big dungeon crawl, blah. No, dude. The different levels of Dungeon of the Mad Mage are very big, have different factions in them, have different groups. You can have diplomacy with them, you can talk with them, you can negotiate. It depends on your dungeon master, obviously. If they just have everything attack you, then you're gonna have a lame, boring game. But if they actually roleplay these different factions and enemies, then this can be full of exploration and social interactions and combat too. And these levels are really, really cool. The only problem with Dungeon of the Mad Mage is that the group really has no reason to go there. There's no hook built into the module. There kind of is, but it's kind of feeble. So the biggest thing you're going to need to do for Dungeon of the Mad Mage is build your own hook, your own reason for the adventurers to actually go into this dungeon. But the better way to run Dungeon of the Mad Mage, in my opinion, is to still use all the levels, but don't have them be in a big dungeon that goes from top to bottom. Take those levels and put them across your game world in different locations and make them their own adventures that your players would go upon in different locations with different plot hooks. And you'd make a unique plot hook for each one of those. That would be like the ideal way, in my opinion, to run Dungeon of the Mad Mage. As it is, a dungeon crawl from top to bottom levels is not my style. It's not how I would do it. There's no motivation for just keep going down. There kind of is, but there isn't. So Stranger Things starter set. I've never even looked at this. I cannot comment on this at all. Ghosts of Saltmarsh, another anthology of adventures. I began reading this adventure module about a week ago or so, and I'm almost all the way through the first adventure. I like it a lot. What is my cat doing over there? I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. I haven't read all of them, but I get really good vibes, and I think my gut impression is that it's going to be really cool. So I'm pretty hopeful of this one. Dragon of Icespire Peak. I've never read that one before. Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. I am playing this now as a player. I have not read the module, and I don't plan to until I'm actually done playing it because I don't want to spoil my game. My impressions so far, having been a player, are that I like it. I think it's cool. I've been enjoying it. I think the storyline is fun. I think the gameplay has been fun. So I could definitely recommend this, but only from a player's perspective. I don't know. I can't really say anything from a dungeon master's perspective because I have not read anything in the module at all. The Lost Dungeon of Rickedness. Big Rick Energy. Rick and Morty. I don't know. To me, this kind of feels like a Nickelodeon type thing, which I probably might not enjoy, but I don't know. I really don't know anything about it. I've never seen it before. I don't even know who Rick and Morty is. I don't know what that is, but it feels a little bit Nickelodeon-ish. That's the impression I get, but I don't know. Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. The adventure itself and the different things you do in the adventure, I think are pretty cool. I think there's lots of interesting stuff in there that would probably be a lot of fun. It is a very challenging adventure. Many of the encounters are deadly. So you just, as long as you know that and are willing to change them as needed for your group, that's not a problem. Just be aware that it's a very challenging module. I punched the numbers on many of the encounters and a lot of them are deadly. So just be aware of that. But beyond that, the adventures that I looked at and all that kind of stuff, I thought were really cool. So I think that's probably pretty solid bet there, perhaps. Candlekeep Mysteries. I haven't read through all of the adventures in it. I glanced at a couple of them. I know we did a flip through last week or the week before on my Twitch channel. but I really haven't read any of the adventures here. This is an anthology, so you would, and they are mysteries. They are mysteries, so you probably wouldn't want to run this cover to cover. Your players would probably you want some variety in your games. You can't have everything be a mystery. That'll get old fast, I feel like. So this is one of those where you would just drag and drop adventures every so often into your game to give your players a mystery. If you're not good at writing mysteries, but you want to run one, then this is a good way to go. And I think this is really good too, because a lot of these adventures and modules and stuff aren't mysteries, and so this feels a really good niche, you know, to give you some more arsenal to throw at your players and use in your games. So probably not a bad way to go, in my opinion. But that's of course not having read, you know, really any of the adventures in it. So it's just kind of my gut reaction to it, you know. I don't run a whole lot of modules. I'm a homebrew person myself, so I'm just kind of sharing with you my impressions on these things and my limited experience with them. So that may or may not be helpful to you, but there you go. Have fun with that. Let's see. I have a very toxic player that makes the game worse for everyone, but I can't kick him because his dad threatened to pull his sister, another player, from the game. What should I do? Kick him from the game. Holy crap. So the dad is like, okay, so you have a toxic player. You have a player who is ruining the game for other people, making the game miserable for other people. And then dad, so you're running a game for like kids or teenagers or something, or younger people, which is cool. I do that too. I have a game for younger people. It's lots of fun. So you're running a game for younger folks, and one of the brother is very toxic and he's doing things that are problematic in the game. And you really would like to remove him because you know it's going to make the game experience better for everybody else. But he has a sister there. And it sounds like because the dad is threatening you in this way, you've already had a conversation with the father and you've explained some of the problems with the son. And the father, it sounds like instead of the father saying, you know what, thank you for expressing your valid concerns about my son, I'm going to have a talk with him and we're going to see if he can become a better role player and contribute more positively to your group. Instead of the father saying that and saying that he's going to talk with his son and work with him to help him to grow and mature as a human being and become a better player and contribute in a more positive way to the game environment, instead of the father doing that, the father has said, if you remove my son from the game, I'm going to take the sister out of the game as well. Ooh. That was the father's response. Kick my son out and I'm taking the sister too. You know what Luke would do? Immediately, Luke would be like, okay, well, your son's no longer in the game. And the father would be like, well, I'm taking the sister out. Okay. Let that be what it is. You are not going to hold me hostage. I do not deal with terrorists. I do not parlay with terrorists. You're not going to pull this horse crap of forcing me to keep a toxic player in my game because under the threat of removing another player. I don't play that way. Homie, don't play that way. This is not going to happen. Luke is going to immediately say, son is gone. Well, then the sister is gone. Okay, well, that's fine. Because you know, there's a beautiful thing about being a dungeon master. There's a wonderful, amazing thing about being a dungeon master. The world is full of people who want to play D&D. And yet there are so few dungeon masters willing to run the game. So I can quite easily find other people to fill my group. It's unfortunate. I don't like it because the sister was a good player, and I would feel bad that she would now be missing out on the game. But there is no way that if the father told me that, I would just take it and keep the kid in there, keep the brother in there, being toxic and doing bad things, ruining the game for everybody else under the father's threat. Would I feel bad that the sister would miss out and get pulled out of the game? Absolutely. Is that the best case scenario for me? No, it's not. But I would expect the father to be more mature and to try to work with his son to help his son mature as a human being and be a better player. Not for the father to give me threats about taking the sister out if the son gets kicked. That's a load of garbage right there. And I would not take that for 1 minute. There's no way. The kid would be gone And if the father pulled the sister out, I would feel bad about it, but I would know that I made the right choice. And then I would find other players, they would play the game and would be good players. And then everybody at the game would have more fun because we got the toxic player out of there. So if your question is what should you do, like that's what I would do. The dude was saying like, I can't kick him because his dad threatened to pull. No, you can kick him. You can kick him. It's unfortunate you'll lose 2 players out of the deal, but if you keep the toxic player there, that's no. Do not deal with terrorists. You do not make deals with terrorists, okay? You're gonna have to do what you gotta do there. So my advice to you is unfortunately remove the kid. You'll lose the sister, you find new players, but the game is going to improve. You can't deal with that situation. And the father's threatening you. Nah, come on, it's a game. I'm sorry, no, homie, don't play that. So that's what Luke would do. And I would, that conversation with the father threatening to do that would just really, that would be sealing the deal for me. I would dig my heels in and just be like, okay, guess what Luke's gonna do now? Yeah, so that's not cool. Not cool. Sounds like you got a toxic father as well, who doesn't want to help his son grow and mature as a human being, but would rather threaten you with taking the sister out. Huh! I wonder why the son behaves the way he behaves. Could it be he learned some of these things from daddy? Might be. How do you handle Curse of Strahd helper NPCs without them feeling like DM PCs? So, I haven't gotten to that part of the module quite yet, but my players will eventually get to a helper NPC like that Dusk Drow that's in the Vistani camp south of Vallaki, or Esmeralda, or you know, the Mad Mage, the Wizard. Somebody there is an NPC that's designed to help them in their battle against Strahd. So in order to not make them feel like DM PCs, probably what I'm going to do is out of combat, I might roleplay them, right? Because I have all of their knowledge and stuff like that. I might roleplay them. But in combat, there's a high probability that I am going to give one of my players, give that NPC to one of my players to roleplay in combat. That way, because here's the thing, in combat, I personally like to only play the bad guys. I want to play one side in combat. That really helps me as a dungeon master. I have more fun that way. And then I want my players to play the other side. So in combat, I'm almost assuredly going to give them that NPC, Esmeralda, or that Dusk Elf. I forget his name offhand. What is his name? No, it wasn't Luvash. Luvash is the Vistani. I forget his name. Anyway, the Dusk Elf or Esmeralda, they'll probably be able to play them in combat. Out of combat, I will role play them and stuff like that. But they will, the way to make them not feel like a DM PC, one of the classic pitfalls of a DM PC is the dungeon master will make them the hero, and they'll give them the cool magic items, the cool loot, and all of this kind of stuff. And so you don't want to do that. You want that NPC to kind of take the back seat. You want the players and their characters to still be the heroes, to still be leading, to still be making the decisions, to still be deciding where to go and what to do and how to approach situations. And then that NPC that's helping them, that's accompanying them, goes along with what they want to do. They don't really give strong suggestions or their opinions on what they should do next. And if I'm role-playing that NPC and my players ask me, hey, what do you think we want to do next? I'll just probably have the NPC be like, well, I don't know. You know, you guys tell me, what do you think we should do? I'm definitely going to, because here's the issue. When the players ask that NPC, what should we do next? They're asking the NPC, but they're also kind of asking the dungeon master who has all of this knowledge, right? And I could easily somehow use my answer in the NPC to guide them in a certain way in the game world. I don't want to do that. I want my players to decide what they're going to do and where they're going to go next. I don't want to use that NPC to guide them at all. So my NPC is going to defer to them. It's going to tell them, hey, no, you go do this. You make the decision. I just follow you. I'm just going to help you. And so that's how I would roleplay that. To make sure that the NPC doesn't feel like a DM PC that's taking control, that's stealing their agency, that's guiding them, that's too overpowered, or et cetera, et cetera. So that would be the tactic that I would end up using. Once I get there. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close.